Hey guys, welcome to another weekly focus. So currently I have a trade on all the pairs I'm trading, that is gold, US30, NAS100, S&P and BTC. So it's quite a busy week for me and there's a lot of setups I saw this week and I had to go in. Now I swing trade, so most of these positions I'll hold them say for a couple of days and see how it plays out. Some of the positions, by the way, once I took the trade, I had some difficulties with the movement, so it didn't play out perfectly, and I'll show you the re-entries I did, and I'll also show you the trades that's currently running as we're talking right now. So let's do this real quick. Let's have a quick trade recap. So I'm going to pull this up. All right, so let's start with the S&P. So if you remember from last week, I had this trade. I closed this at 3.54%. I did reattempt another buy on the S&P 500. I took the buy at this point. Now this stopped me out, so I had a -1. So I had a -1% on the S&P with the initial buy attempt. I had a re-entry, so I did a re-entry again. So I got in around here, say the first time. Price played out a little bit. We had the pullback. It took me out because my stop loss was say below this point, and it took me out. So I had a re-entry. So the trade started playing out. I moved my stops to break even once I saw this increased volume coming in from the sellers. I didn't like the structure and everything on this trade, so I moved my stops to break even, and eventually the trade closed at the break even. I had another reattempt on this again on the buy. So with the S&P, so this particular trade setup, I've been watching it for a couple of days now. So this is, I think, the second attempt this is the third attempt on this buys, and if it doesn't kick off from here, say coming into next week, and then I'm going to reanalyze the pair, and it might be a possibility for sales to come in. But so I have another position in on the S&P right now, and I'm looking for another buy opportunity. So let's see. I haven't moved my stops to break even because I had a re-entry. I think that was yesterday. Now let's look at NAS. If you follow me as well on the trades I've been taking, you know the S&P and NAS has almost a similar play for me. So I always trade these pairs alongside because of the correlation. So the S&P last time we closed at plus 3.17%. I reattempted the buys on NAS. I reattempted the buys on NAS100 as well. So I got in here, I got -1 on this. So trade closed at -1. I did reattempt the buys again at this point. Price started playing out as well, just similar to what was happening on the S&P. It played out, sellers came in impulsively, and I had to move my stops to break even. I closed that trade at break even, and I had another attempt on this for a buy once I saw this consolidation around this area. So the sellers came in, there was a consolidation. I decided to buy again because they didn't push down as impulsive as I was thinking. So I had another reattempt on the buys. So I'm currently having position on NAS100, the S&P 500. I'll show you the trade I have on BTC. Let's do this really quick. So with BTC, once I started BTC, I think on the 22nd, I think I said this last week, I had a sell on BTC. It didn't go as planned. I had moved my stops to break even, and I had a re-entry on BTC. So this is the re-entry for me. So right now I have a position on BTC. I'm selling BTC as we speak. So I had a sell here, and I've had my stops move to break even. You can look at the charts right now. Once we had this consolidation around this area, it was just an indication that sellers are probably slowing down a little bit. So I had my stops move to break even at this point. So I'm still holding the position on BTC, and we'll see how far this can go. I'll show you the trade on US30. So let's look at US30. So the previous one was closed at, this was a good trade I closed previously. Now the current one I'm in on a sell, and I'll explain this on the charts as well because I called this out during my weekly focus for last week. There's something I was expecting to see. Once I saw it, I decided to go in with the sells. So I have a position running in, I have a position on US30 currently running, and we'll look at the charts when we do the breakdown to see how that's playing out. Now let's look at gold. So with gold, I've had 2 attempts on this. I had an initial attempt to sell. So this was last week when we had like the break even on this. So with gold, I had an initial sell attempt. We got in right here, and I moved my stops to break even. The initial attempt on gold stopped me out at the break even, so I had the trade closed at the break even, this initial attempt. and you can see right here the trade closed at the break even, price came back, took me out, and then I had a reattempt again to sell. So I took sales again on gold, and I'm currently holding this position. I'll show you the charts again in a minute. So you see, it's been a very busy week for me. I have a lot of trades I'm managing, and I have a lot of setups I'm looking at. So let's dive straight into it and look at the possibilities we have for next week. All right, so the first thing we have to look at every single time is the DXY. If you have the direction correct on the DXY, it becomes very easy for you to play with the other pairs. So we'll look at the DXY, we'll take it one time frame at a time. So let's start with the daily time frame. So the first thing we look for on the daily time frame is just the direction. As I said before, if you have the direction correct on the DXY, it makes it really easy to play with the other pairs. So looking at it from the daily time frame, there are just two principles we're working with. The first is the trend line, the next is the psychological levels. So looking at price action, we had this movement, we had a pullback, we had sellers, pullbacks, we had sellers again, we had a pullback, we had sellers again, and I was looking at this trend line. So every time price touched this trend line, we took out the lows. There's a touch of the trend line, the lows were taken out. Here it didn't really touch, but we had a pullback and these lows taken out. So right now price has violated this trend line, so I was expecting a touch of this trend line and for price to continue moving to the downside. When you look at what's currently happening, price has taken out this trend line and it's moving to the upside. So with this piece of information, the next thing I can use here is just the psychological levels. So if price has breached this area, price has breached this trend line on the daily time frame, we were trading from this psychological level of 101. So the next possible area price can travel to is 102. Now there's a possibility this can travel, say, up to like 106, 107, but I'm trying to look at the next possible level to see if we can trade to that level. I wait for a reaction from that level, we'll make decisions, and then we'll see if price decides to continue to the upside. So when you look at price moving from 101, we went through 101, we came back and we were sat right here. I was expecting a test of this area and for prices to continue to the downside, and however the buyers came in really impulsively, and that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing the buyers in control. So this is a 101 level. There are two things I'm looking at here. The next possible area is 102, and for price to get to 102, we could see a continuation like this. Prices get to 102, we'll wait for a reaction at 102. If there's an inability for price to go through 102, then you could see prices stepping back to 101. So those are the possibilities I'm looking at on the DXY. Another possibility is an impulsive move through 102, and you could see buyers continuing to the next level, which is 103. But currently what we're dealing with is the movement to 102. So let's see how price can get to 102. Now if price doesn't get to 102, this is another possibility. If price doesn't get to 102, we could see a reversal coming in and for prices to test 101. So there's a lot of possibilities that can happen, say, next week, and I'll step down to the 8-hour time frame. So we'll step down to the 8-hour time frame. So this is what we're looking at on the daily. Pullbacks, sells, pullback, sells, pullback, sells, pullback, a breach of the trend line, price is moving to the upside. Now let's look on the 8-hour time frame and see what price action we're dealing with. So this is the 8-hour time frame, and this is what this caught my attention, this move right here. So you don't see this on the daily time frame. So on the 8-hour time frame, like right here, we have a trend that is building up as well. So we had this pullbacks, we had price making a low, we had this area taken out, settling above 101. We had a pullback to test this area, giving us this trend line. We had a move up, there's a pullback testing an area like this. So currently on the 8-hour time frame, we have prices moving to the upside. So if you ask me, I will tell you simply, the buyers are currently in control, and if the buyers are in control, the next area for me is 102. So we need to see how price gets to 102. For price to get to 102, you could see an impulsive move to 102, or you can also expect, say, a correction, a test of this trend line, and you see a possible move to 102. Now, going off of what we saw on the daily time frame, because we understand 102 and 101, these are the levels we're trading between. So there's a possibility, say, once this trend line gets violated, let's say we get a test of 102, if we get a violation of this trend, we could expect a pullback, and you see prices heading to 101. Now, if this doesn't happen and we see price respecting this trend line, then we could simply go above 102, pull back to test 102. So we could see a move like this, a pullback to test 102, and you see a continuation again to the upside. So two things could happen on the DXY. You get a continuation or you get a reversal. So if you get a continuation, we'll see prices trading above 102. If you get a reversal, we'll see prices coming back to test 101. So that's what I'm looking at. So we have this trend line on the 8-hour time frame. So all we can do right now is monitor the movement on the 8-hour time frame, and you can take this along as well. So let's say we're looking at this on the 4 hours. So I'm going to put this on the 4 hours. We'll step down to the 4-hour time frame, and we have the same trend. I'll put this on the hourly as well. So we'll look at it on the hourly. So the same thing. So the current price action, you can tell without a doubt. So the buyers are in control. You have this area taken out. You have price moving to the upside. Price pulled back to have a test of this area. That's 101. There was this inability for sellers to continue to move to the downside, and then the buyers stepped in, came in impulsively, had a pull back to this area, and then moved to the upside. If this has to continue, so if the buyers have to continue the same information we're looking at on the 8-hour time frame, we should expect a pullback to an area like this, giving us prices, say, to 102. So delivering prices to 102. So that's what I'm looking at. Now let's look at the hourly time frame. So on the hourly time frame, the same information we're looking at on the day on the 8-hour time frame. So we have the same thing, pullbacks, and I'm expecting pullbacks as well. So just let me make this a little bit bigger, like this. All right, so you had pullbacks coming in. This is the first. We had pullbacks coming in. This was more of like, say, a range or a consolidation. So you had this pullback, it's still a pullback. So we could expect the same thing, say a movement like this to have a test of this level, or you could expect, say, price moving, you still get a range like this and a test of this area. So these are all possibilities for price to test this trend line, and then you see a reaction from the buyers taking prices again to the upside, and the next level I'm looking at is 102. If this doesn't happen, so let's say sellers come in impulsively and we get a break of this trend line, once this happens, you probably see a pullback or a correction, and then you see sellers resuming again, taking prices to 101. So those are the possibilities. So I'll keep this chart, say, on the hourly time frame, and we'll take this information right now and play on the other pairs, because it's quite easy. You know what's happening on the daily time frame. You've had, say, a violation of the daily trend line. You have prices moving to the upside. The 8-hour time frame tells you we have a trend that is building up, and you can see prices moving to the upside, pulling back, move to the upside, pulling back of corrections. There's a move to the upside. So we're waiting for the pullbacks or the corrections to come in, and we'll see how buyers can react from there. So we can take prices to, say, 102, and if we get a breach of this area, we'll see prices dropping all the way to 101. So now, if this price starts pulling back to have a test of this trend line, some pairs are going to move to the upside. If this continues moving to the upside, some of the trades I'm currently holding will continue moving to the downside, and that's why I have all these positions in. I have all these trades I'm monitoring, and I'll see which ones play out and which ones take me out. So there's a possibility I could lose on all the positions as well, but it's quite rare. So let's start with US30. We'll start with US30. We'll start on the daily time frame. So this is what we're looking at last week. So I'm just going to tell you what I was expecting last week. So when I did the forecast last week, we had the same price action, but I think price was around an area like this or an area like this. And I did tell you I would take a sell on US30 if we have a test of these highs, because at the time this was the highest point price had moved to. So I was looking at an area like this, and I said if we get a test of this area and I see, say I have a candle like this, which was say a rejection candle at this area, then I really want to take those sells and see if prices can move to the downside. And that's what I saw. So we had a test of this level and price didn't really go above this level or close above this level impulsively. But that's not the only thing I was looking at. So let's just break this down real quick. So what's currently happening on US30? So when you look at it from the daily time frame, if I make this bigger, you can consider your trend. So you can consider different trends. If you zoom out, there is this massive trend on all of that, but I'm going to show you the piece of price action that makes sense to me. I like looking at the immediate price action because it's very easy for you to digest what's happening currently, and you can now use this to anticipate what's going to happen in the future. So we have prices moving to the upside. We had a pullback at an area like this. This is what's happening on the daily time frame. Now pullbacks on the daily time frame is a lot of price action to deal with on lower time frames like the 8 hours, 4 hours, and even the hourly. So we had prices moving to the upside. There was a pullback. This was interesting because we had prices going through the 40,000 level like impulsively. We had a reaction at 41. It was just a pullback, and we had prices moving again to the upside. We had an interaction at say we had a pullback. We had an interaction at say 41,000. We had prices moving again to the upside. Now this is very interesting because when you look at it, you can tell, say there's a trend line right here. So there's a trend line around an area like this. So this is what I was looking at. So I was looking at this area and this possible trend line. So you had prices pulling back, you had prices pulling back, you had prices pulling back. So this is the only thing that threw me off on this pair. I was looking at this highest point right here, and I was looking at the interaction of price at this area. So we've had prices testing this area right here, and I was expecting so a test of an area like this, say 41,000, and this is on the daily time frame as well. So it means once you have a test of a psych level on the daily time frame, you should expect impulsive buys. So we had a test of this area, and I was expecting impulsive buys to take out this area, and we tested this highs and price, and the seller stepped in again. So that was a concern for me because I was expecting a close above this area so we can test 42,000. So that didn't happen, and that gave me indications like there's a possibility for a sell coming in. So I'm looking at this right now, say from the daily time frame. What areas can we work with? We had the 41,000 level tested already. So we had a test of 41,000, price moved to the upside. Now I'm expecting sales to come in. I'm expecting sales to come in, and this is just going off of simple price action and the way prices interacting at certain levels. I'll step down to lower time frame just so we can see what's happening actually. So what are the possibilities we can look for on the daily time frame? The first one is just going off of psychological levels. So the first level we have is the 41,000 level. The second level we have is 42,000. Now if I'm wrong with my anticipation or with my trade idea on US30, then we should see prices moving to the upside. I have a stop loss, I think, above this area, somewhere around here. So if I'm wrong with my analysis, you should see prices moving all the way to the upside to 42,000 and possibly above 42,000, say maybe 43,000. But the immediate level we can look at, is 42,000. So price is currently above 41,000. We had a test of 41,000. We had prices moving to the upside, and we didn't really see buyers coming in impulsively. So I'm still expecting sellers to come in and probably test 41,000. And if the buyers are really serious again, then you could see that massive move again to the upside. So that's just one possibility. Another possibility is for us to see sellers coming in. So if we keep hovering around this area and we can't really close above this area. If we see sellers coming in, the first thing I'll be expecting is a test of 41,000, and if we go through 41,000, then I could expect a pullback to have a test of this area, and the next possible area for me is 40,000. That's the first possibility I'm looking at on US30, and this aligns with the trade idea I took. That's what I'm looking at. Now the next possibility, if this idea for me is wrong, then the next level I'm looking at is 42,000, and just say a possibility for buyers to take prices to 42,000. And that's just going off of the psychological levels, because there's not a lot of price action you can read from the daily time frame, so unless you step down to lower time frames. So let's look at, say, the 8-hour time frame. All right, cool. So on the 8-hour time frame, now I like what's happening on the 8-hour time frame because it gives us more price action to work with. So if you if you zoom in on this piece of price action, this will make sense to me because it's happening currently. So we had prices moving to the upside, there was a pullback, consolidation, price moving to the upside, there's a consolidation, price moved to the upside, there's a consolidation. We had a pullback, we had a test of this area, and I was expecting prices to smash this area like really impulsive, to tell me that buyers are stepping in impulsively to have a test of 42,000. However, we took out these highs, but we still didn't close above those highs. I'll zoom in on that area so you can see. Let's do this. All right, cool. So this is what I was looking at here. So we had prices moving up, we had this consolidation, we had a test of this area. That was a perfect test of that psychological number of 41,000. We took out this high, but when you look at it, prices we haven't closed above this area. We've tested this area, we've wicked around this area, we've done a lot around this area, but prices haven't really closed above an area like this. And this high still looks to be intact, and this just looks like a wick at this area. So my expectation is for sellers to come in and take prices again to the downside and possibly test 40,000. That's what I'm expecting, and I mentioned this on the daily time frame already. Now if I'm wrong on this pair, then this could simply be a pullback to an area like this, and respecting this trend line, which you can see, I think is happening perfectly on the hourly time frame. So you had price reacting here, price reacting here, price reacting here, and there's a possibility for us to see prices moving, say, to 42,000. However, my initial bias on US30 is to see the sales coming in, and that's just going off of the psychological levels, going off of price action and seeing how price is interacting at certain areas. And this was a major area for me. I'm looking at the interaction at this point, inability for prices to close above impulsively. Now the next level for me has to be 41,000. Let's step to lower time frames and see if there's anything that makes sense. So I'll step down to the 4-hour time frame. All right, cool. So on the 4-hour time frame, let's see, I'll zoom in on this as well. So if you remember, like on the 8-hour time frame, we had this area, and I told you there's a possible trend that's building up on this right now. So if we put a trend line, let's make it easy, and we work with this trend line. So this is what I'm looking at right now, and this is how I'll manage the position I'm currently holding. So when we step down to the hourly time frame, you'll see prices moving from an area like this, moving to the upside, pulling back this trend line, testing this trend line, testing this psychological level. There's a move to the upside, there's a test of this trend line again. Now this is very important. What's happening now in US30 is very important because it's going to determine what's going to happen, say, in next week. So we have a test of this area right now, and similar to what was happening here and here, if the buyers are really controlling this move, then we should see a move like this, taking out this area, and the next target for me has to be 42,000. So once you break down the charts from, say, the daily time frame, 8 hours, 4 hours, you start seeing more price action, and it makes it easy for you to anticipate better compared to what you had on the daily time frame, because now there's more price action you can work with, and it makes everything easy. So this area right here, if we react from this trend line, if we get a reaction from the buyers from here, we should expect this area to get taken out. My stop loss is around here. This should take me out. I'd say -1, and we could see prices moving to an area like 42,000. However, if we get a breach of this trend line, so let's say we get an attempt from the buyers again, we get an attempt and it's difficult for the buyers to take prices above an area like this, and we see a violation of this trend line. Once you get a test of this, now this could be like your sales. So this is a possibility right here, and you could sell something like this. You have your stops above an area like this, and the next area for me will be 40,000, and that's almost a 1:6 risk to reward. So that only happens if this area doesn't get violated, but if this area gets violated, that's a different story. So let's say that the highs get violated, so we'll get a violation of this area and price moves to the upside. I'll probably wait for a pullback to come in, test the trend line again, and at this point I'll look for a possibility to buy. I'll look for a possibility to buy to an area like this, and this could give me 1:3, 1:4, so something like this. So this is what I'm looking at. So there's a lot of possibilities, as I told you, that can happen, but currently I have my sell positions on US30. I'm going to hold this, and once you swing, like when you understand swing trading, or once you understand how to swing trade, you should be comfortable sitting in pullbacks like this. So I'm currently having these pullbacks coming in, and I could be sat in pullbacks for a couple of days. So sometimes I'm in pullbacks I'm seeing in pullbacks or drawdowns for like three days, and that's not good, but it comes with the business as well. So that's what I'm looking at on US30. So another possibility could be getting, say, a scaling when something like this happens, or just allow price to play out. So that's US30. Let's look at NAS100. NAS100 and the S&P 500. So before, for me, it used to be NAS, S&P 500 and US30 correlating perfectly, but I think the past couple of weeks it's been NAS and the S&P. So for now, US30 is out of sync with these other pairs, also with the other indices. So let's look at NAS100. I have a position running on this. I have a buy position. I had a stop loss hit, so I had -1 on this. I had a re-entry. I showed you guys already. Now let's break down NAS100. Let's start from the daily time frame. So what I'm looking at right now, so this trend line, I mentioned this last week, this was a trend line we worked with. This trend line got taken out, so I'm not interested in this trend line again. We had a trend line here, this trend line got taken out, so there's no interest at that point. When you zoom in on this is a piece of price action I'm really focused on. So now let's break this down. There is no perfect trend we see within this area, and if there's no trend we see on this area, and then we use the next principle, just psychological levels, price went through 19,000, which is this area. We had to move close to like 20,000, and we've seen price coming back to the downside. Now this is a very complicated one, because now we haven't really tested 20,000, and once we had price moving above 19,000, we didn't really get a pullback to test 19,000. So these are the two possibilities I'm looking at. Price can test either of these levels. Price can still pull back to the downside to test 19,000, and you see buyers stepping in to take prices higher. Another possibility could be buyers looking at this as a pullback and a sell, or a price they're comfortable with, and you see buyers stepping in to test 20,000. So when I look at a situation like this, and it's quite difficult to tell if there's no trend line on the daily time frame, the first thing I ask myself is, what psychological levels are we dealing with, and where is price most likely gravitating to? So we look at this area, we had 20,000, and we look at the next area, we have 21,000. So coming into next week, this is the area I'm looking for price to play within, and possibly test one of these areas, go above or 20 or go below 19,000. So let's step down, say, to the 8-hour time frame. Before we go to the 8-hour time frame, we've had a pullback coming in on the daily time frame. Now, for you to have a trend on the daily time frame, you need to move to the upside. That's for an uptrend. You need prices to pull back and then you see prices moving again to the upside. So when I look at this piece of price action currently on the daily time frame, if I'm trying to make sense out of this, we have prices moving to the upside, we have a pullback. If this comes in as a pullback, because when you look at this, it's impulsive. When you look at this, it's coming in correctively. So if this has an inability to move to the downside, then we could see prices moving to the upside for it to give you this characteristic higher high and higher low. And that's what I'm looking at on NAS100, and that's why I had my buy position on NAS100. I'll step down to lower time frames and just so we'll see what's happening. So on the 8-hour time frame, let's look at this. So this is very interesting. We had buys coming in, right? We had, say, 19,000. We had a test on 19,000 on the 8-hour time frame, but I like seeing this test on the daily time frame, so I'm not really going to focus on this. So we had buyers coming in and we've seen sellers stepping in. So I'm considering this step from the sellers as a pullback. So once we've seen these pullbacks coming in, now we can use trend lines to see what's happening like perfectly. So if you put a trend line right here, now this for me is very interesting. So this aligns with the buys I took on NAS100. So I was looking at this more from the daily time frame. We had buyers coming in from the daily time frame, and as I told you, you have a trend that build up on, say, the 8-hour time frame, but I was looking at this trend on the 8-hour time frame as a pullback, nothing more than a pullback, and that's why I had a buy attempt, I think around, where was that? I had a buy attempt around here, and I think it's quite difficult to tell on the 8-hour time frame. I'm not going to waste you guys' time, but I had a buy attempt on NAS100. It didn't play out properly, and I got stopped out. I think my stop loss was here. It stopped me out, and then I had this movement from the buyers. So when I'm looking at this from the 8-hour time frame, it's correct to say sellers came in pullbacks, sellers pullbacks. You had sellers and then the pullback. So the question I asked myself is, if this trend on the 8-hour time frame had to hold through for the sellers, then we had to see a break of this area. So an interaction at this point should probably give us a breach of an area like this. So this didn't happen. I didn't see it, and all I saw was price testing this area, trading outside, pulling back to an area like this, and this gives me confidence to hold these buy positions, and we'll probably see prices testing 20,000. And that's what I told you, once you step to lower time frames, the price action becomes clearer. So from the daily time frame, we had this move, and on the 8-hour time frame, yes, we have a trend line that is playing out, or we have a trend that was building up on the 8-hour time frame, but I was looking at this trend on the 8-hour time frame as a pullback for buyers to resume the move again to the upside, and that's what I was looking at on the 8-hour time frame. We can use this information to step, say, to the 4-hour time frame, and let's go back to the 8-hour time frame. So I'll clean this real quick. Yep, let's say I'll take this out. Alright, cool. So let's focus on this piece right here on the 4-hour time frame. So we'll look at it on the 4-hour time frame and the hourly time frame. So step down to the 4 hours and let's make sense of this. Alright, so we had sellers coming in, we had sellers coming in, we had sellers coming in. So every time we had a pullback, we had this area taken out, pullback, taken out. We had a pullback, and this is the lowest point price could move to. So this for me was a concern already. So once we had a pullback on the 8, so you had this trend building up on the 8-hour time frame. We had a pullback, inability to really make lows or test an area like this. We had another pullback, inability for price to test this other side, this other low. So this makes it easy for me, and I have my buy positions already. So I think I got in at an area like this. So I'm expecting prices again to move to the upside and test an area like 20,000, and probably even go higher than 20,000, but let's stay with the range we're working with. We have 19,000, we have 20,000. So even if you had to go and say, like right now, put your stops here and you take a buy like this, that's almost 3.46. so you can just say you want 3%, like 3%, and that's still a good trading scenario right there. So that's what I'm looking at on US30. So this possibility is for us to get the buys to say 20,000, and I'm going to hold my buying position on my buy ideas simply because of what's happening on the daily time frame, and that's very simple. We have an impulsive move from the upside, and we had this trend building on the 8-hour time frame, which I look at as a pullback, nothing more than a pullback. If I'm correct, we should see prices moving all the way to 20,000. If I'm wrong, however, then we should see an area like this taken out. We'll get a test of 19,000. So if I'm correct, then this price should keep moving to the upside to test 20,000. And if I'm wrong, then you could see this trend line, or you could see sellers respecting this trend line or pulling back into this trend line, and you see sales coming in all the way to the downside. So when you see what's happening, say on NAS100, you can look at the same thing on the S&P, and I'll move to the S&P in a bit just to show you. But we can step down to the hourly time frame. I hope this is messed up on the hourly time frame. Move back to the 4 hours. I'll take this out real quick. Take this out real quick, and then we'll step down to the hourly time frame. So once I have a scenario like this on the 4-hour time frame and the 8-hour time frame, it's not a lot I can do on the hourly time frame, because it just goes to reinforce what's happening. So sellers, pullbacks, taking out this area, pullbacks, taking out this area. We had this area taken out. We had this lowest point. This pullbacks came in. What I was showing you guys on the 4-hour time frame, the pullbacks couldn't take out an area like this, and this is the lowest point we had from the pullback. We had another pullback, still unable to take out an area like this. So I'm expecting this to move up and start taking out these highs progressively, and so we can test an area like 20,000. So that's what I'm looking at on NAS100. Now if I'm wrong, as I told you guys, then prices should come back to the downside, but this is what I'm looking at, and this is my focus. I'm expecting prices to move to the upside on NAS100. Now let's look at the S&P 500. Okay, so for the S&P 500, it's a similar move of what's happening on NAS100, so I'm really not going to waste time on this one. So the daily time frame, there's no trend line for us to work with. Now this piece of price action right here caught my attention. It looks like a consolidation on the daily time frame, and we're currently sitting above 5,600. So this psychological level of 5,600, going off of the principles I've been explaining to you, if price hesitates at one psychological level, or if price trades through a psychological level and gets a test of that level, you should expect prices to test the next level. So in a situation like this, we had buyers coming in impulsively. We had buyers trading above 5,600. Multiple times we've had price pulling back down, sellers pulling back down. There's that inability to go lower. So we should expect prices to move to the upside. And the next level I'm looking at is 5,700, and possibly for prices to go higher than 5,700. I mentioned this last week as well. All right, cool. So with this information, now let's try and make sense of what's happening within this consolidation, like the consolidation we see on the daily time frame. Let's step down to the 8-hour time frame and see what's happening actually. So I'm going to do this real quick. All right, so we understand from the daily time frame we have buyers coming in. This psychological level of 5,600, this is what makes a lot of sense for me like right now. So I'm looking at this area of 5,600, and when we look at this area of 5,600, this is the, like, I have questions I'm asking myself. You have sellers coming in impulsively, you have buyers attempting, you have sellers coming in again, you have buyers reacting, and right now price is trading above 5,600. So we've had an attempt from the sellers to take prices lower, failed. An attempt from the sellers to take prices lower, failed. And right now we're trading within this area. So the next possible area for me has to be an area like 5,700. That's straightforward for me, going off of the way I trade and going off of the way I look at price. It might be different for you, but that's how I'm looking at it. So let's step to the 4-hour time frame, and all I'm trying to do is just make sense of this consolidation right here. So on the 4-hour time frame, you had sellers coming in. There's a pullback from sorry, you had sellers coming in, there's an interaction or a reaction from the buyers. You had sellers coming in again, interaction from the buyers. Now this looks impulsive. You have a test of this area 5600, and price has hovered around this area. Now if price stays above 5600, we should expect prices to move to 5700. That's like straightforward, and it's not really complex. You just have a pullback and you have price struggling at an area like this. So if you had to go in, say on this position, I'm in on this buys already, but if you had to go in, so you could look at an area like this and take prices to the next level, 5700. Let's see, this can give you probably 1:2, that's 1:3 if you have your stops at an area like this. But if you have your stops lower or below this area, you might get say 1:1.5, 1:2, just depending on where you put your stop loss. Now this is a preference thing, so I'm not really going to talk on that, but this the possibility you see like 1:3 and stuff like that. But the bottom line is we're expecting prices to go to the upside. So if you decide to buy say at an area like this, you decide to buy at an area like this on lower time frames, that depends on you. The most important thing is having this anticipation for the right direction. Once you have it correct, then you can step down to lower time frames and scalp. You can stay on the higher time frames and swing trade. It doesn't really matter. So this one, I'm looking at an expectation for prices to move to the upside, 5700. That's the level I'm looking at on the S&P 500. And we can look at, say, let's do this, the hourly time frame. Yep. All right, cool. So on the hourly time frame, you have sellers coming in, inability, buyers reacting, sellers coming in, inability, buyers reacting, sellers coming in, inability, buyers reacting, sellers coming in, inability, buyers reacting. So this one I'm looking at right now, possibilities for prices to move to 5700, and that's because we have these difficulties for sellers to stay below 5600. So the next possible area for me is 5700. I'm currently in on the buys on this trade. Now let's look at gold. We'll start from the daily time frame. Now gold and US30, gold, US30 and B2C, I had selling opportunities on these pairs. So it might be different coming into next week, but currently I'm holding the sales on gold, I'm holding the sales on US30, I'm holding the sales on B2C as well. So let's look at this from the daily time frame. Take it one piece at a time. So the levels I was looking at, you have 2400, you have 2500, and you have 2600. Now there's a high possibility, because we're trading above 2500 on gold, we could see a possibility for prices to move say to 2600. But then I have a sell on this one, so this is it's a different rate compared to the other pairs, and I understand what you might be thinking. So you might say, yes, we're trading above 5500, so we should see prices moving all the way to 5600. If you look at something like that, that's correct. But I had something else I was looking at on a pair like this, because when you put a trend line on the daily time frame on gold, this is what I was expecting. You have this area taking this area out, you have this area taking this out, you have this area, and there's an inability. So this is what threw me off on gold, the fact that we had a test of this trend line and we couldn't take out this area. So because we couldn't take out these highs initially, that's why I'm looking for selling opportunities on gold right now. So we'll step down to lower time frame, but I've shown you already on the daily time frame what I was looking at. So normally if this was respected, then we could see prices moving all the way to 2600. But then I'm seeing say a current break of this area, and so this is like a bridge for me on the daily time frame, and I'm expecting sellers to come in. The next area I'm looking at is 2400. So all I have to do is make sense of this consolidation happening here on lower time frames. So we can look say at the 8-hour time frame. All right, cool. So on the 8-hour time frame, you see the trend line I was talking about. So you have this interaction here taking this out, this interaction taking this out, interaction, and we still haven't taken this area out. and that was a major concern for me looking at it from the 8-hour time frame and the daily time frame. So we had this coming in, inability, tried one more time, inability here, we had a break, prices moved again to the upside like so. So we had a test of this area, we still had an inability, and again we've had prices testing 2500. Now this is very interesting because we could have a buy coming in on gold again. We could have a buy coming in on gold. Currently I have sells on gold, but there's a high possibility, and when you look at these psychological levels, these things are really important. So in as much as I have sells on this pair right now, because on the daily time frame we had a trend and we had a violation of that trend, so I was expecting prices to sell. If these sales do not come in as I'm expecting, then we could see buyers coming in to test an area like 2600. So this for me is still a possibility, and I could be wrong with the selling position I had on gold, and you can see. So right now we've had prices testing 2500, buyers stepping in. We've had prices testing 2500 and buyers stepping in again. So let's keep the trade idea I had on this pair for sales, let's just keep that aside for now. But when we look at what's happening, like currently we've had prices testing this 2500 level and it's still holding. So there's a possibility I have my stop loss above this area. There's a possibility this can reverse on me as well, take me out at this area -1%, and we see prices moving all the way to 2600. Now this becomes different. So this becomes different if prices break below 2500. So if we get a break below 2500, I'll look for a test of an area like this, and then we'll look for a continuation to the downside, and I'm looking at 2400. But just looking at this, there's a possibility for buyers to come in. So I'm not really going to go deep into that, but just going off of the psychological levels is something we've been explaining over and over again. This reaction here is, I'm really concerned with this reaction on 2500, and I know I have these sales in, but I'm really concerned with this reaction at 2500. So I'll see how the buyers come in. If it's really impulsive, then it should take out these highs and make its way all the way to 2600. However, if this comes in correct, like in a corrective manner, and it's not able to take out this area, we could see prices trading below 2500, and the next area for me has to be 2400, like so. So I'm going to step down to the hourly. Let's look at the hourly time frame. Let's see, clean this. Oh, that's the 8-hour time frame. So let's look at the 4 hours. Yeah, so this one I'm looking on the 4-hour time frame. I'll take this out and make this clean. Okay, so looking at this on the 4-hour time frame, and that's what I said. So there's a high possibility I'll reanalyze this pair, and I might be closing these positions. I don't like the price action right now for the sales. So we've had this area taken out. So currently we have a consolidation here. Once we have a consolidation and we have price settling above this area, and we see this and this, there's a possibility this is headed to 2600. So we might be taking out an area like this. So the only way I'll probably hold my trades on this is if price can fall below 2500, give us a test of an area like this or an area like this for us to see prices selling all the way to the downside. So those are the possibilities I'm looking at. But with what's happening right now, and just going off of the other principle, psychological levels, trust me, this thing can reverse on me real quick, and you see buyers coming in. So that's what I'm looking at on the 4-hour time frame. Let's look at, say, the hourly. Same thing on the hourly. There's the same thing on the hourly, it's just more price action. So I won't be surprised if we see buyers coming in on gold. But I'm still going to hold my sell positions in, because if this struggles, we might not take out this area if it struggles. But if it comes in impulsive, like what I'm seeing right now, if the buyers are impulsive, then they will take out an area like this. If it struggles, then we might see it slowing down, and then we'll see prices dropping again to the downside. So that's a possibility those are the possibilities we're looking at on gold. So a possible movement back to test 2600, or you get this correction from the buyers, you get a breach of that area, and we look for sales and see if we can take prices to 2400. So I had my sales at an area like this, and I'll keep holding this and see if it comes in really impulsive. I'll break even or maybe close it and then reanalyze and see if there's another opportunity for us to take prices to the upside. So just to give you a quick take on this one again, so two possibilities I'm looking at on gold. We're having a test of this area, impulsive move from the sellers, buyers reacted, sellers came down again. So you see this reaction from the buyers. So it's very important we wait and see what's going to happen. I'm in this sales already, but if you're not in on this sales, I'll say hold on, wait and see how the buyers are playing out. If the buyers are struggling to move to the upside, then this could reverse again and take prices to the downside. And that's why when you swing trade, you should be able to hold your positions when pullback starts coming in, because you can be sat in the pullback for like 2 days. So that's what I'm looking at on gold. So if this pullback's coming impulsively, then we could see prices moving all the way to 2600. Now there's other underlying factors I'm looking at on gold, and that's why I had this positions on gold. There are other things as I can't really put everything out here like that. It's just going to make the video like really long, because it's like details and the setups we're looking at. So I'm not going to go like into those intricacies. But if we see sellers trading below 2500, then we could get a test and we see prices headed to 2400. It will stay above this area, then the next area I'm looking at is 2600. So that's it for this week, guys, and quick take. So we have this on the DXY. If we get a pullback here, we should see prices maybe moving back up 102, a breach, we'll see prices going all the way to 101. Now if this pullback start coming in on the DXY, expect a pair like gold, expect some movements to the upside, expect US30 as well to move to the upside, and then expect pairs like NAS100 to move to the upside. This pullbacks coming in on the DXY will align properly with the buys I have on NAS100 and the buys I have on the S&P. Now if this continues moving to the upside, if this moves to the downside, it will align with the buys I have on NAS and S&P, and it's not going to align with the sales I have on gold and US30. Now if this comes to the downside and starts moving again to the upside, then it's going to align with the sales I have on gold, and it's going to align with the sales I have on US30. So it's a 50-50 kind of thing, and some of these positions will probably get taken out, but I'll manage it properly and see, because sometimes you could have say the pull, or you can have say this movement, this pullback coming in on the DXY, and it really doesn't affect gold that much, and you see now the movement on gold coming in correctively, and once it flips on the DXY, then you see the sales coming in, you see the move to the upside on the DXY. So it's a lot that we have to look at, but I think I've given you guys a quick take on everything, and it's just a directional bias thing for us. Once we do the market focus, once you have the direction correct, everything becomes easy. All right guys, so that's it for me this week. I hope you found this really helpful, and as usual guys, make sure you're patient with your analysis, make sure you're patient when you take your trade, but you need to be consistent with everything. So patience and consistency is key for me, and if you keep doing these things guys, you'll see some success down the line. And if you found this interesting, don't forget, hit that like and subscribe button, use the comment section as well. See you during the next one. Bye for now.